Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 232nd episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So it's been way too long since I've covered this iconic trio of my Caucasian brethren. In fact, I believe I've only discussed them once before on the page, which was way back when I covered their genre-shifting sophomore LP, Paul's Boutique, which, as usual, I'll throw a link for down in the description below if you want to check that out. As popular as these guys were, in my opinion, their discography kind of fell victim to an issue that many artists before and after them would also have to deal with, which is having their magnum opus so early on in their career that you don't really hear albums like Ill Communication, Check Your Head, or Hello Nasty brought up quite as much as they deserve to be. I think it's kind of a weird thing with hip hop and maybe other genres of music as well, where certain people go into a new artist with the mindset of, oh, well, I see this one album is usually regarded as their masterpiece, so I'll just check that one out and ignore all the other stuff because it must not be as essential. It's kind of an indictment on how sometimes people would rather just talk the talk instead of actually listen to the music and form an opinion for themselves, or even worse, they'll form an opinion even when they know that they haven't listened to the artist they're talking about. And I see that all the time, especially on social media, because those kinds of people are pretty transparent and they don't really realize how easy it is to see through. I mean, there's only so long you can talk out of your ass and not get called on it. I myself was guilty of this when I was younger because there was a time where I hadn't done any deep diving yet. It was just under the impression the only albums worth listening to were the ones you see over and over in top 500 albums of all time lists, like Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest or The Chronic by Dr. Dre. Then I started expanding my horizons and found that there's countless amazing albums out there from practically every genre that resonate with me, and many of them I never would have had the privilege of hearing if I had just stuck to that closed-minded attitude and only listened to what other people told me was worth hearing. Then I started expanding my horizons and found that there's countless amazing albums out there from practically every genre. That's a big reason this channel only features albums I enjoy, because I feel like that old adage of everyone's a critic seems to get truer with each passing year, and it's much easier to hate something than it is to like it. That isn't saying you have to enjoy everything you listen to, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just relating back to my earlier point about fake music fans, because if someone brings up an album you've never heard of, you can either admit you've never listened to it, which nobody wants to do for some reason, or you can pretend you have, in which case it's much easier to just say you didn't like it, because then when someone asks you to name any identifiable aspect of the LP, you could just say, well, I don't remember because I didn't like it, so why would I go back to something I didn't like? The reason this fits into the topic of Beastie Boys is because their 1986 debut, Licensed to Ill, was such a massive genre-defining moment for hip-hop that even to this day, I feel like there's a good amount of fans who hear their name and immediately associate it with a song like Fight for Your Right. At least that's how I was in middle school when I was getting put onto them, and I remember thinking the whole fight for your right to party concept and sound just wasn't really my cup of tea, which at the time I assumed meant the Beastie Boys must just have not been for me. But what little me wasn't acknowledging was how that was their first album, and once I got a bit older and fell in love with Paul's Boutique, I realized they had a whole discography past that point that I'd been doing a disservice by not checking out. I'll get a bit deeper into some of those other titles another time on the channel, but when it comes to the handful of dope albums they dropped across the 90s, Ill Communication would probably have to be my favorite. This project has everything you could possibly want from a Beastie Boys release, from the personality-filled back and forths that the three members had pretty much perfected by this point, to the expansive track list that veers into all sorts of different genres. Even the purposefully muddy and grainy vocal mixing on many of the tracks, virtually everything hits on here, and you can't forget about the iconic music video for Sabotage, which was sensibly this album's lead single. This was a period where MCA, Ad Rock, and Mike D were listening to a lot of Miles Davis and other progressive jazz artists, and they clearly have a wide appreciation for all forms of music, which is one quality that shines through pretty much all of their work. The production on here may be credited to Beastie Boys and Mario Caldado Jr. or Mario C, but unlike the vast majority of projects I've covered on this page, we actually get some musical or instrumental contributions from the likes of Money Mark, Amiri AWOL Smith, and percussionist Eric Bobo, who would later become a resident member of Cypress Hill after meeting them on the tour for this album, interestingly enough. We only get two vocal guest appearances on Ill Communication, but you couldn't really ask for more legendary features, considering they come in the form of Biz Markie and Q-Tip of a track called Quest. When it comes to my top 3 favorite songs overall on here, they would definitely have to be Sure Shot, Get It Together, and The Scoop. Then for honorable mentions that didn't quite make that cut, I'm gonna shout out tracks like B-Boys Makin' with the Freak Freak, Sabotage, Root Down, Flute Loop, The Update, Alright Hear This, Sabrosa, Do It, and Heart Attack Man. Thank you for watching my 232nd video. Next time we're coming back over to the West Coast to discuss a Long Beach Titan who's way overdue for a second appearance on this page. So look for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments off this diamond in the rough are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Look, the key to my soul is locked in the cage it opens. The framework was made from my own rib cue. What came first, the crack or the crack lighter? Whichever one the first fiend used to bring back fire.